Hello everyone and welcome to Clo Knits, my knitting channel where every other week I do a podcast where I talk about what I'm knitting, what I plan on knitting, what I've been knitting, all these things. And sometimes crocheting too, and sometimes spinning, but mostly knitting. So welcome back if you are returning to this channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Claudia. I live in Montreal and I live here with my family. I have 2 daughters, a husband, and a dog. And it is the second day officially of spring here, everywhere in the world. But here, right now, it feels like winter. So I'm filming this on Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Yesterday was my birthday. And yeah, my birthday is the first day of spring, but spring decides to, be later and later every year in Montreal. So it's not really a new thing that you wake up in March and one day it's like 10 degrees. Yes, I'm Canadian, so it's in Celsius. So one day it's 10 degrees and the next day it's like -10. So this morning was a -10 day. But it's beautiful outside, it's super sunny, and yeah, I'm super happy to be chatting here today about what I've been making. So let's start. Before we keep going, if you have not subscribed to the channel and you like this, please do subscribe. It does help the channel get views. And if you would like to see more of what I'm making in the everyday life, you can go follow me on Instagram. You can also go follow me on Ravelry, where all my knitting projects, mostly all my knitting projects, are somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? Cataloged, somewhat. So first things first, what I'm wearing. Today I am wearing my Honeycomb Aran. It's a pattern by Gail Dunn or Bun? Done, I think. Oh my god, I'm sorry, Gail, but it's a beautiful pattern. It's a free pattern that was released in the patterns, in the patents. I think you say patents, but I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes I say patents and sometimes I say patents, but whatever. It was released for them and it is a free pattern, which is amazing because literally this pattern is just really nice. It is not necessarily, it doesn't hold your hand necessarily, meaning that yes, it is a all around cabled sweater and it is knit from the bottom up in pieces and seamed. So obviously if you don't know how to seam, or if you've never done heavily cabled patterns before, you might get a little confused because there's a lot of those cable charts to follow and you have to place them properly within your each section of the sweater, and then you have to kind of decrease in pattern, which is not necessarily explained. You kind of have to go with your guts, but I really loved making it. It was a long-term project. Like sometimes I start a sweater and I'll knit only on that sweater for a month and then finish it, within that month. But this one was an on and off kind of thing because obviously, even though I knew the pattern repeats, after a few of the repeats, I could read my knitting and know exactly when to do which chart. I didn't have to look at the pattern anymore. It was still very involved. I don't use cable needles when I do cables. I just twist it on my needles, and there's never a cable that's more than where you have to twist more than 5, I think, stitches, so 3 on one side and 2 on the other. So it's very easy to manage, but you do have to, be looking at your knitting the whole time. So yeah, I made it quite a bit shorter. The original pattern is is very long, and because I'm a short person, I wanted it to be a little bit more. So let's see. Let's talk to you about the yarn that I used. Where's my leftover skein? Here. I think I talked about it like plenty on the first podcast. So go check that one out for more details. But like, it's the Corrie worsted by La Bien-Aimée in the color Lise, and this is luxury yarn. Like, it's not, it's very luxe. And so I wanted to make it feel luxe, and I wanted it to be a sweater that I could wear, you know, for special occasion with like a nice black skirt, or you know, dial it down with some jeans. But I didn't want it to look too frumpy, is not the word I'm looking for, but I didn't want it to be like a outdoorsy type of Aran sweater. So I decided to make it a little bit shorter in order to compensate for the fact that it could look a lot a lot. But anyway, so everything else I did according to the pattern, and it has beautiful folded neckline. It's amazing. This yarn is beautiful. I will talk about it a little bit more in a second because I have a few finished items, and one of them, let's talk about it right now, is actually made partially with the Corrie worsted. It is a design that I made because I teach knitting online in French. So I have a French website that has online courses, and my next course that's gonna be coming out in the spring is a course on stranded knitting. So I wanted to create a pattern that would help people do some stranded knitting, and I came up with this. It's so beautiful. I'm really proud of that one. So it is a cowl. Let's put it on. So there you go. My hair is now all, you know, squished. So it is a stranded cowl where you always use the two colors. Obviously, one of them is it's a fading marled type yarn. So that one is here. It is called, it is not the one you might suspect it is. It is called Feederbrook Farm. It's the Feederbrook Farm Entropy DK in the color Luminous Flux. And it is an hand-dyed, made in USA, with 100% blue face Leicester wool. So it is bigger than a spin cycle. If you were thinking about the spin cycle, it's a little bit bigger than the spin cycle, and it is non-superwash. So for me, that's a big plus when I'm doing color work things. I like non-superwash yarns because they kind of come and fill all the stitches, and you end up with something that's very cohesive. Whereas with non-superwash yarns, when you're doing color work, sometimes the stitches can be very defined, but they can also feel not necessarily combined as much as I would like them to. So I took this one, I looked at these colors, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to use with this to contrast? Because I needed a big contrast. I didn't want it to get lost in the motif. And so I had, you know, some left over. Those don't take more than, like, it's less than 50 grams per ball that I used. So this is untreated BFL, and the Corrie worsted is untreated Falkland and Gotland. And this is a worsted, and this is a DK. But because they're both a worsted woolen spun yarn, it means that they're very aerated and they can fill up the space that you're giving them. So a DK weight yarn can be put next to a worsted weight yarn and look 100% fine. Obviously, you should always gauge swatch and see what they look like together. But if you were to use a DK weight, you know, superwash wool with a worsted woolen spun wool, then you might get a fabric that's a little bit less cohesive, but it might be great. So, you know, what I say to people when they're asking me about color work is always just swatch with what you think could be cool, and then you'll see. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. And this turned out freaking amazing. I really like it. And the color work just takes its place once you wash it. Obviously, this is washed and blocked, which means for me just soaking it in warm water with a soap, and then rinsing it and laying it flat to dry. So I don't stretch it, I don't do anything, I don't pin it, I just lay it flat to dry. And so yeah, this is a new cowl. I'm not sure about the name just yet. So if you have ideas for names for this beautiful cowl, let me know. The pattern will be written in English. I will release it soon, so I'll have the pattern in English and in French, and then I'll put it in my French course, and I'll be teaching this. I knitted on size US 5 needles, so 3.75 millimeter needles, because even though it's worsted DK, I wanted it to be dense because I like my cowls to stand. I don't like when they kind of flop away from my neck. I want them to actually be warm around my neck because that's what I use them for. I don't like my neck to be cold at all. So dense fabric, but still super light because it's a woolen spun yarn. So that's my first project that I made in the last week, and I just cranked it. Like once I found the yarns I wanted, I just went for it. Now my daughter wants to reclaim it, so I told her that she had to wait, that I took pictures and make sure that you know, it's before she starts wearing it to death. And then my other daughter wants another one of those, but with a blue yarn combined with this. So I'm trying to see in my stash if I can find a blue yarn that could, you know, go well with this, or if I'll have to find something else. I'm not in the market to buy more yarn right now. I have plenty, but I have to find the right one that will fit with this. So one ball of Feederbrook Farm and one ball of Corrie worsted will get you enough to knit at least 2 of those cowls. And I could even just reverse the colors, and that could be kind of cool if I were to do that. Yeah. So, but my daughter wants blue, so I'll make another one with blue. Here we go. Then I also finished something that was not started when I talked to you, 2 weeks ago. And it was kind of a spur of the moment. You know, when you have a yarn in your stash, and that one was a yarn that was sent to me to review. And it is absolutely not something I usually work with, but I thought, you know, I'll get some balls of that yarn, and I'll crochet some hats for my daughters for the summer. And I did. I crocheted 2 bucket hats with a yarn from Hobby. And let me see, I have the leftovers here. And I had 3 different colors. And this is the leftover that I have. This is a yarn that's a wool, not wool, it's a cotton. It's like a chainette cotton with section that has metallic thread. Let's see. Cotton and metallic thread. Maybe it has a little bit of polyester in it. I'm not 100% sure. So it's kind of sections of neutral, followed by a section of metallic color. It's called Panettone. I don't know how you say it in English. And I had bought a few skeins of this for a hat for my daughter. I had another color that I'll show you in a second for my other daughter. And then I had bought a very neutral one, like a beige and gold. Where's the gold? Show me the gold. There you go. With a gold thread through that one. And I thought I was going to make myself a top, like a summer top with it. And to be honest, it was just staring me in the face in my stash, and I didn't know if I was going to ever get to it, because there's so many things I want to knit with, and this was just not my priority whatsoever. And then my daughter asked me for a sweater. She said, "Mama, can you make me a cardigan?" And I said, okay. So she's quite sensitive to wool. She could wear some superwash wool, but sometimes even that itches her a little. So I went for this, and I told her, if I make you something out of all those 3 colors, the leftovers I have, will you wear it? And she said yes. So I showed her what I was intending on knitting her, and she loved it. Well, it's not knitting, it's crocheting. So I crocheted her a cardigan. A very 70s cardigan. I feel like it's very with the sparkle and the neutral and color and the patchy, like patchwork type thing. So it's a hexagon crochet square, like granny crochet, that you actually end up, you know, picking back up to like do these sleeves, and you make 2 panels like that, and then you seam them up in the back, and then you can add some length, and I added a little bit of length afterwards, but just enough so I could finish my yarn, because literally the only thing that's left is this and this. And I had like, I think 3 full balls of the beige. I had maybe 2 of the blue and like 1.5 of the pink, something like that. I would have to like weigh it to know exactly how much I used. But the pattern said to do some ribbing with the crochet at the end here. My daughter wanted it to stay loose and flowy, so that's why I did that. And it's quite cute. It was a lot of fun to make. It is definitely like a worsted size, worsted weight yarn, and I used a big crochet. Oh, I can't remember exactly the size, but I'll put it up in a Ravelry project. I followed a tutorial from Kelsey Passionate Kelsey, I think. And it's on YouTube. I'll link to it in the description box below. Super simple to follow. She's really good. She explains every single step, and I just followed her explanation. I'm really happy with it. It makes me want to make myself a crocheted cardigan. Not in those colors, not with sparkly wool, but like, I feel like this would be a perfect project for, you know, the quantities that you don't know what to do with. Like a little scrappy. I don't know if I'd want to make it scrappy or super neutral. So I have all this neutral wool from Crux Fiber. That's like the unspun wool that I was talking about on my unspun video from last week. So you can go check that out if you haven't yet. I talk about a bunch of unspun wool that I tested. And Crux Fiber, Brittany, sent me 3 very neutral colors: a brown, a gray brown, and a beige, and then a yellow gold. And I think it could be really fun. Like, it could look very vintagey to make a big cardigan like that, like a hexagon crocheted cardigan. But at the same time, I'm not sure. So I'm still like, I'm looking up there because that's where that wool is. And I've been really thinking about what pattern I want to make with that yarn. I think I want a cardigan because I'm clearly missing cardigans in my life. But I think I want to make like a drop shoulder big cardigan, like maybe the Douglas cardigan from Andrea Maury could be an option. And maybe as a color block instead of like stripes. She does stripes, but I could do like 3 different colors and then have all the edging be another, the 4th color. I think that could be very, very nice. So anyway, let me know if you have a favorite drop shoulder, oversized cardigan recommendation for me. I'd love that. Not too long because I'm quite short, but I want it to feel cozy, you know? Okay, so that's the second finished object. Then, can you hear my dog running down the stairs? Then I have this one that I've been working a lot on that is gonna be finished quite soon. Very exciting. So this is gonna go here, probably on my body. This is the Radari sweater. Radari is a pattern from Vidi. I can't pronounce her name, but it's for Istex, and it is obviously very Icelandic yoke Icelandic yoke sweater that I'm knitting in Nutiden. So it is bottom up. Start at the bottom, knit the body, knit the sleeves from the bottom, and then attach everything together and start knitting the beautiful color work yoke. I was very excited to get to the yoke. It is very fun to knit, but it is also another one that's very involved to knit because every once in a while you get a row with 3 colors, which if you've done color work with 3 colors before, you know that it's a little bit more, you know, yeah, you have to look at what you're doing. But if you're set up right, you're fine. So what I do is I sit right here, sometimes on the couch, but I'll put my computer on with a movie that I've watched before. I've been watching Lord of the Rings because I know the movie, so I don't have to pay so much attention to it, but it still, you know, gets me some entertainment. And I'll set up my balls of yarn where I'll put my background color on my right, then I'll put like my middle color, the one that's kind of just after the background but not the one that pops the most, next to me on this side, and then I'll put the contrast color completely on the left, and so I don't move those for the entire round, and then I'll start knitting. And I am not at all tucking in my floats, so you can absolutely see the entirety of the pattern on the inside, because like the longest floats this pattern has is like 5, I think. No, that's not true, because when you're working with 3 colors, I think sometimes you might have, yeah, those have 5. More than 5? 7 maybe? 7 maximum? Anyway, but this is a super sticky wool. It is Nutiden unspun wool. And because it is super sticky, as long as my floats are long enough, they'll stay put. Like, once I soak it, it's gonna get in place, and all my my floats are gonna tuck to the back of the to the inside of the sweater, and I'm never gonna have to worry about the floats ever again. Like, literally never. I've done the same thing on my throwback cardigan, which has a 3 color, you know, yoke and with long floats. Never ever did I tuck my floats or twist my floats, and it's absolutely fine. So these are the 3 colors that are used in the yoke, the color work section, and then this is the color I'm using. Yeah, there's little bits and pieces of wool everywhere in my bag. So this is the color I'm using for the main color that I'm matching with. Can't see it in its little bag, with a mohair here, trying to keep some fibers from like attaching to one another. So this is the mohair that's paired with this dark purple to give it a little heathered look, which I really love. And I'm 100% happy with it. I can't wait to try it on, because obviously the only thing that's difficult with those is it's knit bottom up, so you can't really try it. You can try it up to the armholes, and then once it's on your needle, it's very tricky to try because there's really no way to know how, well, there's a way I could calculate my row gauge and then read and see how many rows are in the pattern, and then calculate how deep my yoke is going to be. But really, ultimately, there's really nothing like trying something on to know how it's going to fit, and you can't try the yoke on until you're done. I did, after a few rounds of the color work, I did put my body into it and I put my sleeves on, but it's so floppy that it's difficult in the back to know how much fabric you have. Like, it felt like it was going to be gigantic, but then now I look at it, yes, it's big, but it's big because it's going to be like a coat kind of thing. So I think it's going to be fine. We'll see. And obviously all my stitches are on hold underneath the armhole here. I put them on mini circulars, so then when it's time, I put on mini circulars and I attach my 2 circulars with a little light bulb stitch holder, not stitch holder, but stitch marker. And I did the same thing here. So then when it's time to Kitchener it together, I just have to do like socks, right? Put half the stitches on one side, the other half on the other side, and just stitch it. I don't even have to pick up the yarn, the live stitches from from a waste yarn or anything because they're already on needles. Yay! So this is exciting. Can't wait to finish. It is a labor of love because the wool is quite fragile, and it breaks all the time, and every time I take it out and in of the bag, the yarn breaks. But I don't mind. I literally, I take the two ends, I do this, start knitting again, everything's good. And all those little bits that you see in there are moments where I like added new colors, or I had to like do some sort of, I'll just cut those a little bit shorter and I'll let them do their thing inside the sweater. I'm not even gonna weave in anything. It's not worth it. It's gonna stick to itself really easily. The only thing that I'll weave in are, you know, the ones at the bottom here, because if I leave it here, then it's gonna show. But that's the only reason I'm weaving it in. It has nothing to do with it coming undone, because it's not gonna come undone at all. So here we go. Radari should be done by the next time I talk to you. Okay. And then I also picked up this. I thought I was gonna end up frogging those, because I realized that, okay, so these are socks. These are the Rickrack socks by Nicole Simmons, I think. It's a free pattern as well on Ravelry. And I did the exact same pattern, except I didn't do there's texture normally in here in the foot, which I did not do. I did stockinette instead. I love the look of stranded color work on socks, and I don't mind wearing them. I don't reach for them when I knit, because for me socks are a mindless thing. So usually when I reach for my sock, it's because I'm going somewhere. I'm taking my Jezabel B small knitting bag, I put it on my arm, I take my sock, and I start knitting while walking, while talking, while being out and about. But then when there's color work involved, it's not the same. I can't really be doing it mindlessly. So I was stuck here for the longest time. I had put, even like all the stitches were off the needle. I didn't even put any holder or any waste yarn on in it. They were just off the needle. And I thought literally that I was gonna just rip them and start again, because I love the yarn itself is beautiful. It's from the Lovely Path. Yes. And it was a sock kit with a 50 gram main color and a 20 gram mini. And it's just so beautiful. And I love using a mini skein with in this way versus always doing the classic heel, toes, and cuffs, you know, accent. But yeah, I was stuck here because I didn't want to pick it up, and I also didn't want to have to measure how long the color work was going to be in order. So I could have just forgoed this, you know, color work section and just kept going with the main color. That could have been a better option than to let them wait for so long. But then I said, Chloe, let's just do it. You have, you know, 3/4, even more, 4/5 of a sock done. Let's just do it. And so I finished it, and then I cast on the second one, and I took the opportunity to make a tutorial on my channel with the second one, where I talk about my 5 tricks to knitting color work in socks so it doesn't tighten too much and it actually fits on your feet. Yeah, so this is on the go. The color work is quite instinctive. It's not difficult at all. I just have to get it done so I can, you know, have the mindless knitting, because right now I have no mindless knitting. Literally, like, all my things require somewhat a little bit of attention. The thing that requires the least amount of attention right now is my shift cowl, which I have not worked on since the last time we talked to you, so I'm not going to talk about it. And actually, we're doing a mosaic cowl that was supposed to end yesterday on my birthday, but I'm going to extend it. I'm going to extend it to the, you know, I think mid-April at least, because I want to finish my cowl. So I'm going to let you finish whatever you're doing as well. But I'm going to pick it back up. I'm going to finish that. And then, you know, I'll have this as mindless knitting once the color work is done, because color work, this was color work. I've been on a color work kick lately. And speaking of color work, let me just show you some yarn I received. It is not yarn that I bought. I'm not buying any yarn right now, except if I really need it. I've been very good with that, and it's not because I'm on a, you know, knitting, no, buying ban or something. It's just that I don't need it, so I'm not buying it. And I'm trying to be very conscious of the fact that I don't need more yarn. So, you know, but I've been sent yarn in order to knit a sample for someone, and it's a special secret project, so I'm not going to talk about it, but don't worry, I'll film me knitting it. I'll take pictures, I'll do all the things so you guys can see what it was once I'm allowed to talk about it. But I will absolutely talk about the yarn, because it is a yarn that I believe you can get everywhere. I'm pretty sure you can get it in the US, but it is Canadian. It is kind of Canadian company. And this is the gorgeous Nurtured Fine by Julie Asselin. So Julie Asselin is a Quebec dyer, and she has those custom blends made for her as well that are gorgeous. Those come in cones, the Nurtured Fine, and it is Rambouillet, Targhee and Merino, 100% untreated, North American fibers. Gorgeous. This is the color Miel, and yes, you can see it in the camera. It has all those subtle color changes that are just so beautiful. And this one is the Naturel, so natural. And it is it's a light fingering weight. And I have 2 of those and 1 of this. Sold in cones, which is kind of nice because, you know, the quantities are, you know, this is 112 grams, 780 yards. So it's almost a lace weight. And yeah, and then I also got where I'm going to be holding it with Julie Asselin's mohair, which is called Anatolia. It's 60% mohair and 40% silk. So it has quite a big amount of silk in it. It's so floofy and delicious. This one is the natural color that's going to be held together with this one. And this one is the saffron in French. That is going to be held with miel, which means honey. And so this is going to be also color work, but I don't get to tell you what, because you get to see when it's time. So it's very exciting. Can't wait. Last thing I want to talk about is this. I finished all my spinning and plying and washing of my 3-ply. So this, so pretty. So this is about, like, I don't have a yard or a meter counter. I really want to get one, but I'm waiting. I'm waiting because my favorite company that makes, you know, electric knitting tools, which is called Romarin Montreal, they made the yarn winder, like the electric winder that I own, which is called the Caker. I love it, love it, love it. I plug it in, I put my yarn in, it winds it up. Perfection. I think they're working on a yarn meter counter thing, so I want to wait and get it from them. But I love when you spin yarn, it's kind of, you know, for now what I do is like once my yarn is washed, I'll count the number of strands I have in the skein, and then I'll measure the skein like flat on the ground. I'll measure how long the skein is, and I think I would do times 2, obviously, because it goes up and down. So it's an approximation. So I think I approximately have 1100 meters. So I can make a really good sweater. And it is a fingering the sport weight. So I'm thinking like super simple. I'm thinking a DRK everyday sweater. So the Dre Renee Knits DRK, it's the Andrea Mari basic yoke sweater, top down. That's that. What do you think? Do you have other ideas of what I could make with? Like I can make any kind of like fingering the sport weight sweater that has no design, because I really want the yarn to be the yarn to shine. That's what I'm hoping. And then this is what I had left over. I don't remember if I keep saying I don't remember if I said it. I should have just looked at my freaking podcast from 2 weeks ago. This is what I have left. I'm pretty happy. Like the pale one and the purple one is almost the same yardage, I'm pretty sure, and the pink one has a little bit more, but I'll put that in my scraps and I'll apply it together with something else at some point when I have enough scraps. So this is a project that I'm kind of excited to start. I don't know, soonish, but because it's a fingering weight, it'd be smarter to knit this instead of knitting my unspun wool right away, because if I knit my unspun, it's going to be quite big and the summer, like the spring and summer is coming, not winter. But this is also calling to me. Both of them are calling to me, so I don't know what I'm gonna do, guys. All I know is I'm really, really happy with this. Really happy. I said it was the last thing. It was the last knitting thing. I like to talk about what I'm reading every once in a while. So if that's not your cup of tea, you can go. And we can say, see you later. See you next week. But I've been reading, and I've been quite obsessed with what I'm reading right now, so I want to talk about it. I'm reading the Stone Sky from N.K. Jemisin. It is the third book to a trilogy called the Broken Earth Trilogy. It's so good. So good. So if you're a fantasy, but it's not fantasy, it's more like sci-fi fantasy. It is a trilogy that is set in a world like on Earth, but very far from us in the future, where Earth has a fifth. So the first book is called The Fifth Season. So every once in a while, there's a fifth season that happens, and the fifth season destroys almost everything around it, and you never know how long it's gonna stay, but it's a season where people are in survival mode. And so we're seeing how these communities live through that, and there are obviously humans, but there are also people that have special powers that are considered to be freaks of nature, and that are cast aside because their powers are scary to people. Even though they could be helping out, they are cast aside as bad people. It is just so, the characters are amazingly touching and beautiful. They're beautifully written with all their flaws and their positives, and I very much love the point of view of in the first book, there's a mom that loses her child at the very beginning of the book, and you follow her through that tragedy, but also her having to deal with the fifth season and trying to find her daughter, who is gone, and her son has been killed, and there's just so much emotions, and the world building is amazing. Absolutely 100% would recommend if you are into that kind of story. I do love myself a trilogy or a longer read every once in a while, like get really deep into a world. I did very much love when I was younger reading, and I reread obviously the Lord of the Rings. I very much appreciated the Pillars of the Earth. I very much appreciated, long series, even Outlanders. I did not finish that series, but when I was younger, it was only 3 books, and I had read the 3 books, and then all of a sudden, like later on, there's a 4, 5, 6, 7, and it kept going. But I've read the original trilogy. Those things just sit with me, and I really, really appreciate reading them. So I've been trying to read a chapter, like not every day because I don't really have time. They're long chapters, but I've been trying to make time to read. Like in the morning, I'll go bring my kids to school. I'll sit down with my hot coffee and read a certain amount before I start working. It feels good, and I love it. And then I'll go do some editing, and will use. So I said that it was my birthday, and just before I started filming, I received a package, and I didn't know what it was. And it comes from Shop Moi Ça, which is a boutique that I didn't know of, and it says gift boxes, local products, obviously local to me. And it was in this beautiful, like there was a sleeve on the box, like this. Like that. Gorgeous. And I opened it not knowing who had sent me this beautiful box. And if you don't know what to send to friends of yours and you're Canadian, and maybe you have friends that are a little like they're in Montreal or whatever, and you don't live there, but you have access to, a credit card that works for there, this is so cool. Like, little, care package. It has candy, sour candy, my favorite. It has a locally made salted caramel, some hot chocolate pouches, some sea salt chocolate, some pretzel. Like, it's my mom. My mom sent me this. It had the little card said underneath, Bonne fête Claudia, je t'aime, maman. So yeah, it was really fun. If you want to go check them out, shopmoisa.ca. I'm not sponsored. I just received it and just truly appreciated getting at my doorstep a box of local goodies. I'm sure wherever you live, there's so many people that do this now, and I think it's such a good way to put a little smile on someone's day, because I received that. It's not much, but it's enough for me to feel loved and to feel like, yeah, it was exciting to receive it. My mom didn't tell me it was on its way, so when it arrived, I didn't know what it was or who it came from. So yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day, a beautiful week. I will see you again next week with, I don't know yet, a video, maybe a tutorial, maybe something else. And I'll see you in 2 weeks for another podcast episode. Bye.